هذه الجلسة ستخصص للمؤسسة الإسلامية لتأمين الاستثمار وائتمان الصادرات. وأرجو من السادة الحضور الالتحاق بمقاعدكم لنستأنف الجلسة. سادة الحضور، أتمنى أن تلتحقوا بمقاعدكم حتى نتمكن من إطلاق هذه الجلسة الثالثة. إذن سيدتي سادتي أيها الحضور الكريم، سنستأنف هذه الحلقة، حلقة النقاش الثالثة ضمن هذه الصبيحة، وأشير إلى أنه جينجل. سيداتي سادتي، إن إعادة تخطيط المفهوم الاستراتيجي لوكالات ائتمان الصادرات عبر إنشاء نظام معلومات لمنظومة الأعمال سوف يساهم بلا شك في تطور الاقتصاد. في هذا الإطار سنستقبل في المنصة الأستاذ أسامة القيسي، الرئيس التنفيذي للمؤسسة الإسلامية لتأمين الاستثمار وائتمان الصادرات لإلقاء كلمة أمامكم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this second session of the Private Sector Day for the IDB Group. Okay, the presentation is here. I believe that we have a very exciting and interesting subject that we are discussing today, and it is a global issue that we are addressing here. And I would like to recognize here on the floor many practitioners in the insurance and finance industry, be it at multilateral level, at MDBs, and the private sector that I can see here. I'm forever grateful for them to come and to take their time and to come and to be with us here today. So thank you very much, and we are honored to have all of you with us here. The topic that we are talking about here is to remap the ECA strategies and to use a strategic mindset through establishment of the business intelligence ecosystem. This has been highlighted this morning during the sessions for the CEOs, where many issues that we have touched about, it will be at the core of this presentation. And at the end, I would like to share with you as an initiative that ICIEC is working on and leading on behalf of the IDB Group and in collaboration with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the OIC, 56 member groups. So go to the second slide, please. It always helps for us when we would like to discuss any topic is to look at global trends. And we look about global trends here on big data. What we witness as end users and as humans these days is that rapid increase of data that is happening among us. The rapid use by us of technology, and at the same time, for us being hungry for data and for us to know more and more through the use of technologies that are available. At the same time, we have a trend where there is acceleration in data storage capacity, and we see that happening in statistics that are global, where we see that capacity is becoming not an issue for us in order to store data and to utilize it, be it individuals and be it on corporate basis, and becoming as well easy for us to utilize the likes of cloud computing and cloud storage when we are dealing with the data storage that are there. And the cost, as I said, is becoming marginal compared to previous years. Number three, I believe, is a topic that a lot of people can contest and can discuss. And some people think it is unethical. Some people think about it as a mean for us to sustain profitability and to continue the growth as governments and as private sector entities. And this is the evolution of machines. A lot of people, like I said, they believe that machines are taking over the role of the human beings. A lot of people, they believe that machines can help and can support the prosperity and the advancements of humanity. So we are looking now and we are witnessing that accessibility to AI and that technology is increasingly becoming more and more available to everybody. And predictive analyses, and this is something that I believe my colleagues, they will be discussing it. I will talk about predictive analysis and the use of it in the insurance industry, and as well the pros and cons of using this predictive analysis. Next, we talk about the data revolution architecture in the world. Data mining, now it is extremely important for us to mine data, and I have mentioned in this morning how important it is becoming for us to collect data. But that data, while it is mined, it has to be used, put to the proper use, and not for us to get data that we cannot utilize in order for us to enhance our position as private sector and to advance our developments as mandate as MDBs. There is statistical modeling for the BI that is happening and going there. Us at ICIEC, we have procured IT systems where it is integrated within the statistical BI modeling, where we can probe into the risk right now in order for us to give our underwriters and risk manager an insight about the risk that we are having. and will give them as well more time to look where they are supposed to look, and not in order for them to waste their time fishing for information that might be readily available for them, but it's not highlighted. Machine learning, we have discussed that. It is predictive, it's becoming, where it can highlight today for us as users issues that we would like to see, and they can be flagged, be it as something that is positive, or it can be flagged as something that is being negative, that an organization or a country that has to look over it and to discuss it in a several way. All of this intelligence that we are discussing is leading to a revolution, and that revolution that we are discussing today, it has to stem out of the need for humanity to advance and to utilize that intelligence that we are gathering from data to enhance our positions, our humanity, and to advance our cause for the future generation, to make the world more sustainable economically and more sustainable environmentally. The data revolution, there I can characterize quickly 5 items there. First, it is digitally generated. So data is digitally created and it is not digitized manually. And we can see that it is happening on daily basis, where we can extract that information out of the websites and out of data generated by MDBs and by private sector and by NGOs. So all this information is readily available to us today. And that, for the beauty of these data that are digitized and can be mined, is that they can be manipulated by computers in order for us to get the proper information that we use, that we need to use, and this is through the BI tools that are available to users that are there. They are passively produced as data, okay? Passively meaning that there's least intervention nowadays with the solutions that we have. Digital services, the simplest form of that can become a website or a digital service where we can mine the data from. So it's becoming passively produced and very cheap. Automatically collected, once we have a system in place, we can extract relevant information and data, and we can generate it in the relevant format that we want. 4, very important to see that geographically and temporarily trackable. The simplest example of that is the use of mobile phones. Now people can track you, you can share your location, and at the same time, in respect of the duration of the time of you utilizing a specific website and what are your preferences when you enter into that. So all of this is with the data revolution is becoming more and more relevant to us in order to attract information and to mine it and to get the necessary lessons and uses out of it. 5, continuously analyzed, and I think this is the most important thing out about data, that now with BI, that information does not need continuous analysis from humans. Now machines can analyze data on our behalf, and they can give us the output that is needed. And more than that, you have some technology that is self-taught, so they can grow and they can develop in order for them to enhance the delivery and the output that is required by humans that are there. The United Nations, they have put together the Sustainable Development Goals. And these Sustainable Development Goals, and I like that last sentence in blue that is there. It says that through the United Nations, a world that counts leaves nobody behind. And I believe that education is central here. And this is where we call as MDBs on governments, and we support through technical assistance governments in order for us to build the science, technology, innovation platform, and we support it. And the IDB group has been and is the first MDB to put together a fund called STI Fund to support this process of digitization and to enhance the position of governments. And I welcome everybody here to look into that fund for IDB to know what it stands for and the uses that is working upon. Very shortly, I don't want to go into this, but if you look into the approach from the United Nations, they talk about the building the data and the capacity and statistical theory, which we have mentioned before. Communicate and visualize data, this is as well is very important. I believe that now the data can be put in a format that is very friendly, where you can interact with it and you can engage it and you can utilize it. And we can see that with the younger generation, more so with the older generations like me, that you need far more time to understand what's happening these days with the speed of change in technology. Regulation, I have discussed it briefly this morning. I believe this is an extremely important part of the digital revolution, where privacy and it should be very much looked into. Who owns the data? Who can use that data? Is it, do I own my own data that the government holds for me? Do I own my own data that, a website that I register to on social media? Do I own my own data with my bank, that they have all the information for me through credit card and habits of spending, so on and so forth? So regulation is very important, and I believe that we are still ways in coming to terms with how we are going to regulate the data usage, who owns it, and who is the proprietary rights to utilize it, and which way we can do that. The national statistical offices as well, we believe that government should strengthen their independence. They should not be influenced by governments, and as such, we can always rely on them as relevant entities to provide for us information that is right and unbiased. There is public and private provider regulatory towards word form of data. This is a form of data that is being put together by the United Nations, where private sector and governments, they come together and they decide together and they confer on the future of data mining and regulations. So I believe it is an extremely important panels that happens over there, and at the same time it's a conference that happens yearly. Last but not least, the public data should be open by default. This is something that they push for under the, this achievement, this initiative from the United Nations, that all the data should be open and should not be restricted to anybody. Quickly, the next slide, when we talk about data, open data, statistical and official statistics. Here, when you see the size of the, these bars, it denotes, how much we are receiving data as data users. Official data that comes from governments, usually it is dismal, and most of these data are not reliable, as we see and statistics can tell us. Government data, these are open government data that they are available to everybody. But most of all, we believe that non-government data, they are the one that they are now leading the stage in order for us to mine data from a private sector and from entities that are not wed, or they are very close to governments. When we talk about data, we have to have the large volumes in order to do it. And specifically in insurance, when we talk about insurance statistics, it has to be done on large volumes. And this is what characterizes big data, that there is a huge number of volumes that are being there in data, that they can be mined and they can be utilized. And at the same time, they require large storage capacity. Velocity at which they are generated, we have discussed that there's a speed of light change right now in respect of the data that is being generated. And the variability of unstructured formats needing additional processing. This is something that we believe that government and private sector should work together in order for them to harmonize, how the output of this information and utilization of it as well, while keeping, an open mind in respect of the data mining and enhancing the data that is provided and generated and given to the public. Values or meanings are not immediately apparent. This is definitely, it is there. And like I said, there is a big disputes among scholars about the value and the meanings of the data that we are receiving, how we are receiving it. And this is where I think as societies, we have to sit and we have to discuss these issues to find out how we go forward in that aspect. I will not go forward and I do not want to take much of your time, but this is, again, the data revolution for sustainable world. It is there. It talks about the equality and detailed, timely, relevant information to be provided. Openness and transparencies, we have discussed that. We have talked about minimizing inequality, and this is, I believe, extremely important. information and data utilization can be utilized to close gender gaps in societies. It can be utilized in some countries in Africa where a mobile phone given to ladies, they can run now their own businesses and they can come out of poverty and they can create opportunities for these ladies to prosper and to create healthy and prosperous families and communities. Last but not least, here we talk about better policy and decisions, and this is something that we have gone through. Value chain, we have discussed it this morning and touched about it. I believe it has to be at the core of all our dealing at the private sector and MDBs. The reason for that is because we need to have financial inclusion among societies and value chain. When we talk about several industries in our member states specifically, this is very much needed in order for us to engage everybody. This is happening, and we can utilize it as well in credit reporting for institution that provides data for us, and they are considered a very important value in the value chain as pillars because it gives us more information that we can tap into, and at the same time it can help us provide more guarantees or insurance to banks to provide funding to these small entrepreneurs or exporters. Capturing and interpreting data, as it was mentioned before, but we need to utilize these data and make them instrumental in supporting economies, and this is where I will come through this, and this is why it is here. It is in preparation of the initiative that ICIEC is working on, and we need to see how much information do we have in order for the private sector and the governments in order for us to work on and to support the private sector. Next slide, please. Credit information in the Organization of Islamic Cooperation member countries. Anybody that studies the credit information that is available in our member states knows that the credit information remains generally underdeveloped, and this is very obvious from our dealings. This initiative that I'm going to present to you stems from our discussions internally at ICIEC when we wanted to enter several markets, be it to support our first mandate in expanding the economies through the provision of insurance for trade finance and credit insurance, where we looked for entering specific markets and to support banks or to support international banks that want to enter our member countries and to give loans to the local banking industry. And we were faced with the dilemma that credit information was scarce and there wasn't enough information for us to provide nor to convince our international partners in order to join hands with us. So this is where we say that credit information is underdeveloped and we need to have more access to information in order for us as MDBs and private sector on the credit insurance to support the exporters and to expand economies and the local banking industry. There is an inadequate credit reporting system that is available, and this is something that is detrimental to the business that we have. The OIC markets, they are behind. If we look at the last two bars that are there, and this is when we talk about the private registries. When you talk about the public registries, you see that they are dismal in nature and they are not reliable, like I mentioned before. But whenever we go into the private registries and here we benchmark with OECD, we would see the gap between the OIC member states and between the rest of the world. So the penetration there, it is for the population, adult population, is almost about 11% compared to 66%. So we see that this is hindering our entrance into markets in order for us to support them. We have worked on a study that was bestowed upon us by the COMSAC in order for us to find solutions how we can integrate markets and how we can find solutions to that deficiency in the provision of credit information bureaus and information that we are receiving. And the study that we have done where we have segmented the markets, and this is all the 56 member states of the OIC, and we have segmented them into 4 tiers. The very first tier it shows that there's 50% or more of the population they're covered by public registries at level of the countries. Number two, it is tier B representing 10 to 50%, tier C representing 1 to 9%, and tier D represent 0%. So when we look at the demographics that we have here and about the population that are already, within the financial inclusion model that we are advocating, if this shows something, that shows that there's deficiency in financial inclusion, because they are not a part of the financial system, so you cannot track them, and this is where the deficiency between the OECD and between the private registries of the OIC. There's a lot of people transacting financials outside the system, or these people, they are not within the financial inclusion scheme that we are all advocating for. We see that the tier A, these are countries that they have advanced economies within the OIC, and then you go and you see that markets that they are up and coming and they are within transformation, and then you find some countries that they are coming out of fragility or they are in fragility right now, that they are still within the scheme of things. They're trying to get out of that. Next, please. So we have developed a strategy as ICIEC on behalf of the IDB group for the OIC, and we called it the OIC Business Intelligence Center, and that was the original proposal that we put to the ministerial session in November 2018. And this stems out of our mandate, that is, it is for to promote trade transaction and enhance the flow of investments to member states. At the same time, we have initiated that study that I spoke of, and we have shown some statistics coming out of it to see how we are going to do it. And nevertheless, there is a Man Union database that ICIEC has been one of the establishing entities that we established a Man Union, and it's a body that houses commercial and non-commercial insurance and reinsurance markets and MDBs in the trade credit and political risk insurance arena within the OIC membership. We had several consultations as ICIEC at the wider scope. We have talked with our international partners, and we came up with a wider study that was presented to the ministerial sessions. The road going forward for that is for us, we want to build on the Credit Information Bureau setup that we have done for Aman Union. Currently, they are growing, and I'm happy to see many members of the Aman Union that are here with us. And our next annual meeting, we will have it in Algeria. My good friend, Mr. Tarikat, is here in the front row. So we're happy that you are hosting our next annual meeting in Algeria. We were naming that center at the beginning as OBIC. This is how it ended up being called. Previously, we were looking at the name of the ICIEC Business Intelligence Center. Now it is OIC Business Intelligence Center, and it will be an enabler for export credit agencies in order for them to obtain valid and timely information from the market. Go to the next slide, please. This is just a background about how we went through the process of getting the approval of the ministerial sessions. And next slide, please. And this is when we talk about the impact that is anticipated out of the OBIC once it starts going. The study, it is shocking, to tell you the truth, after we have seen it. It has shown after we have, talked to Sister Concerned, we have gone and we talked to the 56 member states, have taken their feedback, and through, lots of questionnaire that we have sent to them, be it ECAs, be it MDBs, be it private sector. And they have showed us that the study, it shows that credit information system could boost lending because of the nature of the guarantee and the insurance we give to banks by 50% to the GDP of the countries that we are operating in. And it would reduce costs substantially and can financially assimilate 2 billion people that are unbanked right now. So when we talk about costs substantially that can be reduced, we're talking about non-performing loans here, that right now the industry can face in the absence of credit information system. There isn't enough data for us to take as bankers, the right position in providing loans. So this is why it would lower the impact financially on the banks. But the shocking number for me was that 2 billion people within the ICIEC country can be within the financial inclusion, can be within the system, and that it would lead directly to an observable impact on the foreign direct investment flowing into these member states that are there. The statement that we have made to the ministerial session that once it is operational as OBEC, it could boost private sector lending in the least developed OIC member states, and this is the key for MDBs, least developed countries, because this is where our priority is. It can enhance it and boost it by increasing an estimated $670 billion a year of money that is entering into the economy. Next slide. Quickly again, it will also have an effective credit reporting system. It will have information that will be given to us empirically that we can study, like we said at the beginning, and we can mine that data. And it can increase private sector lending approximately by 47.5% of GDP. Number two, there is availability of comprehensive credit information system, and that lending volume of 11% that we showed previously, it should increase. It should reduce the rate of non-performing loans, like I mentioned. There is high correlation between foreign direct investment and financial market development, and this is why we said that there is a huge impact on the flow of capital. And last but not least, it will help incorporate financially, and this is what I said about financial inclusion, 2 billion unbanked people in our membership. Finally, very quick, OBEC will provide deeper support to the selected OIC member countries in a very limited credit reporting capabilities. It will develop technology, and it will enhance the position of member states through the provision of helping and to support them to put together IT systems and solutions that can support the growth that is required. And more than so, selected countries and within OBEC will provide the technology and also manage the data. This is where I talked about Tier A, that these countries, they will be chosen to lead this project. Before we go to this last slide, I believe, not last slide. Before we go into this slide, I want to say that the study showed, because there is the presence of economic communities that are available within the OIC, we have to deal with them not on a country-to-country base, but we have to deal on a hub-and-spoke model. And this is where we show the Tier A countries where they will be hosting these hubs in order for us to start building the capacity for these countries, and then we can interconnect them. So this is where it says in the previous slide that we have to build capacity through these countries to start with. Technological drivers solution, we have discussed that previously, and this is data collection and the design, the packaging, and most of all, in all of this, I believe we have to always stress on information governance. IT platform, we have discussed it with several of our partners. Several of our partners right now, we are in the process of selecting the IT platform, and we're talking with other MDBs, and we're talking as well with private sector players in order to see and to learn from their experiences on how to do it, in order for us to go to market much quicker than before, and to learn from their experiences and successes. Next slide. Like any project, whenever you are looking at it, there should be a SWOT analysis, and this is a SWOT analysis that has been done on the member states in order for us to see about the credit intelligence ecosystem and capabilities. Most important of all of these things, I would like to look at the threats, and I will be sharing this presentation with you so you can go over those. We have to always, it's good to look at the strength, it's good to look at the opportunities, but weaknesses and threats, I believe they are the ones always that have to be highlighted. And I believe they are always underscored, and people look at the successes and they do not look at the threats that we face. We have, as a threats, we have regional block initiatives that I said it is economic communities that might hamper the growth of the OPEC, so we have to see how we can work with them. There is the technological disruptions that is happening through technology in different industries. We have to see how we can overcome that in the IT systems we are getting. Last but not least, it is the current business and investment flows to IC economies is low, so we have to work with regulators in order to see how we can enhance the inflow of that business. There are pillars that we have discussed and vision and strategies. And these strategic pillars always falls within the developmental mandate that we have. We can see here that there is the country development and cross-country operational excellence and capability building. All of this has been done in detail within the study to show that the strategic pillars, it's all stems out of the position of the countries and how strong are they on the ground and what kind of support they will need from the center or the, the program once it is established. On the solution framework, we have identified 5 core areas. One of them is the strategic advisory that we will be providing through the center. Number 2, it is operational and technical advisory, and this is all to be given to private sector and to the governments. C, it is the credit registry that is the core of the study as it started. And then we have a credit bureau linkages that we need to do at, like I said, a hub and spoke model. And last but not least, we would like to see that center ultimately become a rating agency for the countries on the sovereign side. Operational model, it falls within the same strategy where we are having these 4 pillars, and they will be run like private sector, where we'll be looking at robust management and governance, benchmarking the data collection, sophisticated and customized technology, and as well market acceptance and engagement. Before I finish this, I do encourage everybody from the OIC and from the other part of the world to engage with ICIEC and with the group in understanding more this initiative. This is an initiative, I think, that will definitely require the support of everybody. It's a partnership that we are always calling for. It's a job that can be done only while we are working as one hand, and we have one focus going forward, which is the development of economies and the human being, because I believe at the end, whether we talk about our mandate as development agencies, as MDBs, I think as well the social aspect of the private sector and what they do in the market can go hand by hand with our mandate. So I thank you very much, and I wish you a pleasant day today.
شكرا لكم سيد أسامة قيسي، وأرجو أن تبقوا معنا وسنطلق جلسة الحوار. وأتشرف بدعوة رئيس الجلسة السيد رفي الدين شيكو، رئيس تنفيذي والمدير الإداري لشركة دينار ستاندرز، لإدارة هذه الجلسة. Yes. And you call yes.
If I can invite the rest of the panelists to please join us so we can have the wider perspective. As Your Excellency Osama, you shared this exciting initiative and the vision. I'd like to invite Ms. Kaiko Honda, the EVP and CEO of MIGA, Ms. Aksinia Sorokina from IFC Advisory Services, as well as Mr. Abdullah Mohammed Al-Alawar, CEO of Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center, to join us on the stage, please. So before we have a discussion, I would, now that we heard the great Mr. Osama, you laid out the vision as well as the plan for a new initiative. I'd like to invite our esteemed panelists who, as you can see from the diversity of the organizations they represent, would be tremendous partners and advisors to this initiative. So first, I'd like to have each one of them, if they can come up and give their thoughts. And then hopefully, if we have time, would like to have a discussion. Logistically, just so to share with you, we've divided this session into two parts. The first part, we have our esteemed panelists on the panel with us, and then there'll be a second part that will go a little bit deeper with a group of tremendous panelists we have who will focus on the technology aspect of it a little bit detailed. So if I can first ask Ms. Kiko, if she could come up and share your thoughts as the CEO and EVP of the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Bank, and have your perspective, please.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, good afternoon. I'm terribly sorry, I don't speak Arabic nor the French, so therefore please forgive me to speak in English. Well, thank you, Lafiuddin, for the introduction. First of all, Osama and ICIEC team, congratulations on 25 years of creating development impact. It is my honor to be here. MIGA and ICIEC have a long history of collaboration dating back almost 20 years. Similar to ICIEC's role in the Islamic Development Bank Group, MIGA is the political risk insurance arm of the World Bank Group. MIGA's mandate is to provide cross-border investors and lenders with non-commercial risk mitigation necessary to invest in developing countries through its political risk insurance and credit enhancement products. Although ICIEC has a broader role, we have similar mandates and spirit of cooperation. In fact, shortly after ICIEC CEO Osama Kaisi first assumed his positions on his invitation, I visited him in Jeddah headquarters and conducted a high-level workshop to ICIEC management on MIGA's risk management framework. He and I are engaging in same insurance business where data is very important. So therefore, both of us have a common approach to managing our respective organizations. Like me, Osama recognized the value of data. And also, the data can come up with several different forms. Therefore, at this stage, it's very important exchanging information, and we have to make evidence-based decisions. Both ICIEC and MIGA are working in the area of specialty insurance. We also deal with the tail end of the risks. In other words, we are dealing with the risks for which relevant data is sometimes limited at best. So it comes as no surprise to me to see ICIEC taking the steps to create Business Intelligence Ecosystem, OIC Business Intelligence Center. Investing in a business intelligence ecosystem can enhance the OIC credit information ecosystem and boost private sector lending. It can improve the pace and efficiency for which cross-border investors can invest in. We also know that data and digitizations is changing the nature of business. All businesses are fact-based. And we also see tremendous opportunity arising from there. While organizations all need to be ready and agile, I thought Maybe today I would share what I have learned from MIGA's experience developing our own business intelligence architecture. MIGA has invested in a proactive approach to business development and relationship management, using information more wisely and integrating information when needed. Before I joined MIGA about 6 years ago, I was working as a management consultant at McKinsey & Company for 24 years. So where I learned the importance of information and data, especially for the financial institutions. Both ICIEC and MIGA are development financial institutions, but I also have to say we have to be financial institutions. Therefore, we have to be financially sustainable. We have to exist, especially insurance company cannot be busted because we cannot really serve our private investors as well as sovereign clients, and some of you are sitting here. So therefore, we have invested in business information system. MIGA recognizes the importance of timely information because things would change from time to time, including sovereign balance sheet situation. But MIGA also understands the importance of data privacy, especially personal data, and works closely with colleagues across the World Bank Group to adapt international best practices relevant to our business model. So our business information system are primarily three. Number one, a client relationship management or CLM system to monitor MIGA's, we call business, but I probably have to say operation, development activities, and to help the management team to focus on items that are important for working toward development impact and overall volume targets. Second, user-friendly operation intelligence portals that generate reports showing the most current operational data which we can access on the go. This is internally known as MIGA dashboard. 3, integrated accounting and business development system. For example, integration of pipeline data and client relationship management data, which allows us more comprehensive reporting. This system, although we took time to develop and also we had to invest, but now has become an asset for MIGA across many different units. They have allowed us to identify new opportunities and cultivate closer relationship with our partners, which allow us to respond better to client needs. These remains much potential to yield more project opportunity from these process. I also, from my previous experience working as a management consultant, I see the value of credit information. Consumer, yes.
Check the time and then look forward to coming in.
Okay, sure. Okay, all right, then I think I'll skip this part, but we are constantly working to find ways to improve the way we operate within MIGA. So therefore, I look forward to having more opportunity to closely working with ICIEC and also people in this room. Thank you.
Thank you. Most certainly, a lot to talk about and see the tremendous experience that MIGA has had as ICIEC and IDB group embarks on this initiative to learn from. And we'll come back with questions, but please allow me to first have another of our esteemed panelists, Ms. Aksenia Sorokina, who represents IFC and they have tremendous experience worldwide on setting up global credit intelligence ecosystems. Would love to hear her perspective. Please.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it is my great privilege to welcome you all on behalf of IFC at this really important meeting today. IFC, as many of you know, is part of the World Bank Group. We partner with more than 700 financial institutions around the globe. We provide investment and advisory services. We have around $18 billion investment portfolio at this point with the financial institutions around the globe. Our mandate is to create an enabling environment for financial institutions in the emerging markets and help them evolve and help them develop the financial inclusion for providing the access to finance for underserved segments. I have several slides, so I would kindly ask the organizers to put my presentation on the screen. In addition to working with the private sector financial institutions, we also work with the governments. We worked in over 80 countries to develop the credit bureaus and credit infrastructure, and I will talk a little bit more about this. But before going into details, I'd like to pause for a second and just put this idea to the audience. Why we are all here? Why we are all here discussing the developing the credit infrastructure, developing the data analytics proposition, and so on. Our ultimate beneficiaries, who are they? These are the underserved segments in our societies and in the economies and emerging markets, in the region and globally. If you can please go to the next slide. So ICIEC research conducted in 2017 estimated that there is 5.2 trillion finance gap among micro, small, and medium enterprises. That's a huge social and economical failure. At the same time, it's also an opportunity for financial institutions to tap into this unserved and underserved markets. Around 60 million enterprises, small, medium, and micro enterprises, have difficulties in accessing credit. How all of us as a World Bank Group, you as our partners or partners with each other, how can we help these enterprises and consumers access credit? And that's why we are all here today to discuss the ways to improve the financial inclusion. Next slide, please. We can skip through this slide as well, already touched upon a little bit. Data. We already touched upon data so many times today, earlier today, throughout multiple sessions. There is no single session that goes without mentioning data. Data, of course, is very important. And we work with financial institutions in developing the big data algorithms, specifically around the credit scoring and the credit underwriting, helping them to better understand the riskiness of their customers. As a result of one of the surveys that has been conducted in the market, only 50% of data is currently being used by the institutions, by the private sector, and which means that the rest half of the data is currently being completely underutilized. But there is a huge value in this data, which can help us to move the financial inclusion forward. Next slide, please. So we're discussing the development, the digital evolution of the market, and as you can see, we are currently just entering the fourth industrial revolution. And what it is? What is the fourth industrial revolution? That's a tremendous push of digitization all across all spheres of our life, financial and non-financial. And we are, as a drivers of the progress, of course, we have to be aware of all new technologies that are happening. Of course, it's AI, robotic digitization, and using these technologies to help underserved segments get access to credit. We can go to the next slide and the next. And the next. The data, how can we use, how can we tap onto this digital trends and data? The data is everywhere. I personally don't agree that data is an oil. It's not oil completely, it's an oxygen. Data is oxygen because it can be used by multiple users multiple times, which is not the case with other asset classes. At the same time, we can also create the data. And that's what I'd like to bring up right now is one way to create the data is to create the infrastructure ecosystem, business intelligence ecosystem. And one way to do this is creating the credit reporting systems. And as you can see on the slide, there are several examples of the credit bureaus, credit registries, and the private sector credit reporting companies. And of course, there are multiple benefits of having this infrastructure in place. It creates a better access to the information. It reduces the NPLs that we saw in the previous presentation. It reduces the collateral needs for micro, small, and medium enterprises. We can move to the next. And the data that is required right now on the market is, of course, it's identity. You know, KYC is one of the most difficult issues that I see currently that the banks are facing. Payment ability, which is the financial statements of enterprises not existent for the smaller micro businesses. Repayment willingness is a credit history of the enterprises, which is also very scarce at this point. So we are coming up with the new ideas how to substitute this. That's why we are looking at the transactional data. We are looking at the geospatial data, we are looking at the mobile network operators data in order to come up with the proxies for those crucial data points that are currently not in existence. We can move to the next, please. And next. Very quickly, the progression of the data analytics, of course, it goes through multiple stages, and we are moving that we are moving towards the predictive analytics, using data for predicting the credit defaults, for example, right? In our conversation today, how can we use this the algorithms and AI machine learning for predicting the bad behavior of the customers? We can move to the next. And to the next. Of course, there are multiple sources of information that the credit bureaus can use. It's the financial institutions, insurers, leasing companies. They all can feed data into the credit bureaus, but at the same time, there are also other alternative sources of data that can be used: utilities, rentals, mobile data, as I mentioned earlier. And I have a few seconds that I want to share, maybe a couple of examples of the credit bureaus that IFC actually set up. If we can skip a few slides forward. I know that I'm a little bit behind the schedule, but I'll try to keep it very short. I think the practical example will be useful. So a few more slides forward, please. And more. Yes, one more. So one example is the credit bureau that has been set up in Central Asia, specifically in the countries which are currently in the second tier of your classification, in Azerbaijan and Kyrgyzstan. There was a project spanning across 5-6 years, and IFC worked very closely with the governments of these countries, and also with SECO, which is a Swiss donor fund. IFC created the credit bureau, which tremendously helped move the financial inclusion forward. And as you can see from some of the statistics here, it enabled more than 600,000 consumers and small and medium customers access credit. And this enabled more than 320 million in additional financing. Just thanks to setting up this credit bureau. And one more example, which will be extremely useful for this particular forum, is the only credit bureau at this point existing in the world, which spans across several countries. And that's something that is currently being discussed at this forum. West African Monetary Union which is comprised of 8 countries, has set up the credit bureau quite recently, just a year ago. And this credit bureau comprises the data from all 8 countries. There was a lot of work done. However, there is a great example that you can look at. And unfortunately, I don't have time to go into much details, but we'll be happy maybe to answer questions if there are any. This example of creating the cross-country credit bureau will be one of the best cases for this forum to look at when you're thinking about setting up the BI platform at this point. Thank you.
Lots to digest there, as well as, I'm sure, a tremendous resource as we embark on this initiative with the OBIC. Finally, one of the tier countries, the tier 1 countries in the analysis, Mr. Osama, you showed among the IDB member countries was UAE. And we have amongst us Mr. Abdullah Lawar, who's the CEO of a Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center, which he will explain, and how business intelligence has been at the center of their success and strategy. Please welcome Mr. Abdullah Lawar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. At the outset, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to thank my esteemed colleagues at the panel from ICIEC, the IFC and MEGA for their brilliant insights actually on the role of business intelligence and the importance of business intelligence. Now, you would forgive me, I will not dwell a lot into the details and technicalities of the business intelligence tools, but I would want to highlight perhaps how Dubai, and specifically our strategy to make Dubai the capital or the global capital of the Islamic economy, has actually generated from business intelligence. As a matter of fact, in 2013, when His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the UAE Vice President, Prime Minister, and ruler of Dubai, announced his vision to make Dubai, and the UAE for that matter, the global capital of the Islamic economy. It came from a series of studies that were happening before then around the potential of the Islamic economy, the opportunities that the Islamic economy presents. So the data that his office has seen was sufficient enough to make a decision, an ambitious decision to announce a vision to make Dubai at the helm of that industry. And we obviously did not stop there. That's the genesis of the center. That's how the center was created, the Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center, that was mandated to centralize efforts by the government and private sector stakeholders to work together towards launching a series of initiatives that position Dubai and the UAE at that level. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, data was the origin or the genesis, the potential size of the Islamic economy. We used a lot of the market information within the UAE for that matter, but also globally to assess what the size of this industry was, what are the main key players in this industry, what are the untapped opportunities of these sectors. And that, to be very honest with you, drives a lot of our strategy forward. Which is why we at the DIDC are very happy when we see announcements such as the one made by my colleague Mr. Osama early on about the initiative regarding creating a central business intelligence center at the OIC level, because this I believe will prove very beneficial to support the businesses across the OIC to make informed strategic decisions about their growth as well. I wanted to draw that comparison, and as a matter of fact, within the key strategy of the Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center, we have one particular pillar that is focused on the Islamic digital infrastructure. And we feel the role of not only, of course, the importance of the business intelligence tools, but the whole practice of using data, analyzing data, and forming decisions out of that data is quite crucial. This is not only relevant, in my opinion, for the private sector institutions, but in our case, as you can see, the government sector as well. Now, because of the utilization, I would say, of such information and such data, the introduction of Islamic economy sectors, those which were not maybe readily apparent in the UAE and Dubai specifically, happened over the course of the past 4 years. We, in the Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center, became custodians of that strategy, but we, on an ongoing basis, we monitored the progress as well. And today, we have enough statistics to show that truly these Islamic economy sectors have contributed to the GDP of Dubai significantly and created economic value add to the economy of Dubai. Last year, the Dubai, in partnership with the Dubai Statistics Center, we have analyzed that the development of the various Islamic economy sectors within the Emirate itself generated close to $9 billion of contribution to the national income of the Emirate of Dubai. And we are sure that this number will continue to grow going forward. As a result as well, the UAE today ranks as one of the leading jurisdictions or markets for the Islamic economy companies or sectors. Globally, it's ranked second in the Global Islamic Economy Index that has been set up by Thomson Reuters in collaboration as well with Dinar Standard. The relevant sectors that have been progressed positively over the past 3 and 4 years were actually feeding the birth of the new companies. As a matter of fact, we have examples where, because of simple, I would say, access to information, such as the potential size of these sectors, there have been companies that have been set up, startups that have been set up in Dubai that serve the Islamic economy consumers. Just looking at the potential size of this economy. So we can never underestimate the power of data and business intelligence. And I think initiatives, as I mentioned, such as the one by ComSec and ICIEC is quite crucial. Of course, there's always the challenge of onboarding, I believe, stakeholders. And I believe an initiative as such definitely has to have a lot of stakeholders involved across the OIC countries, but also in some cases non-OIC countries. So the more stakeholders are involved, the more business intelligence tools are onboarded on this platform, I am sure that the overall goal will be achieved. I think I'll stop there to enable a dialogue later on. Thank you.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm delighted to see a tremendous story that we've heard, both the need and the vision, starting off, first of all, with the fourth industrial revolution technologies that offer us a tremendous leapfrogging opportunity in terms of the gap that you, Mr. Osama, stated within IDB member countries. I believe the stat you shared was around 11% of, I know that we're talking private registry versus 66% OECD, and certainly on the business and corporate side, it's also stark with data quality issues, so forth. So our esteemed panelists, from starting with Ms. Kiko in terms of MIGA's experience in this context, IFC's obvious and very strong insights around it, and Mr. Abdullah Awar's presentation around a use case of one of the member countries that's leveraging business intelligence is tremendous. So we don't have too much time, but I'll go around and ask one question to each, starting with Mr. Osama. Now that you ended your presentation with the vision of this new initiative that has been approved. Obviously, you'll have a huge task as a multilateral body. You know, it's one thing to create a solution like this in one country, one market, or even as Ms. Aksenia mentioned, you know, a few countries. We are talking about 57 countries here, and that too, you showed the tiers of maturity around credit intelligence. Can you tell us what type of partnerships you would be seeking in order for this huge mandate and critical mandate to come to fruition?
Thank you, Brother Rafiq. We cannot take this in the context of, it has to start with regulations first. And this is something that I touched upon this morning. We have to work with governments at the outset in order for us to create the regulatory framework where we can operate and we can move. The model that we are advocating, and we have discussed it, it is a hub and spoke model. And this is something that was highlighted by the distinguished panelists from IFC, like economic communities in West Africa, or economic communities in North Africa. We have them in Southeast Asia. And this is where we have to start by building these hub and spoke models in partnership with the governments, and ultimately it is with the private sector. We have seen from the statistics that was shown on the screen that we have more reliance on data that is generated by the private registries, and as such we believe that we have to engage the private sector in negotiations with the government in order for us to put the platform going forward. There is no hiding from it. MDBs, they are engaging more and more, the private sector in developmental aspects of any business that we are dealing with, be it humanitarian, be it developmental, be it financial inclusion, so on and so forth. And this is another initiative by an MDB, the Islamic Development Bank Group led by ICIEC, where we will be dealing with all our partners, and definitely the panelists that we have here, the esteemed panelists, and then coming to the next session where we have the private sector involvement. All of them, they are, they're going to be our natural partner in order for us to go ahead and roll out a plan and a strategy to succeed. It is a challenge, but I do believe that hard work and commitment and that close coordination between private and public sector will be beneficial to our membership and to the human being at the end as we advocated.
Tremendous. So I'll consider this a call to action for the private sector entities and various enablers of such a platform to come forward and making this vision a reality. This topic is a personal passion for us as an organization, Dinar Standard. I didn't have an opportunity to introduce briefly, but consider us the aspiring McKinsey of the Islamic economy space as a research-driven market intelligence and strategy consultancy firm. And one of the things, the challenges when we embarked on mapping the corporate landscape, I'd say in 2005, we launched a ranking called Top 100 Companies Domiciled from OIC member countries. And there was tremendous interest. The Economist covered, all major media covered, because one of the challenges we will have in OIC member countries is a lot of business is not publicly listed. A lot of business is, a majority of the economies are privately owned or government linked. So if I can move to Ms. Kaiko, with MIGA's tremendous experience as a similar risk mitigating global institution, how is your experience specifically in context of IDB member countries? And what unique challenges do you see coming towards an initiative like this OBIC? I think if you press, yeah.
Thank you. Well, MIGA's mandate is slightly different from the credit. We actually do, we do enhanced credit, but we actually doing at this moment is BB minus and above countries. So, but in a sense, about 70% of our business is political risk insurance. So we actually rate the 4 types of political risk for each country, which is our currency incompatibility, transfer restriction, breach of contract by the government, expropriations, and warrant civil disturbance. We have in-house economists working very closely with the sovereign as well as IMF and the World Bank. A lot of information at this moment is public. At the same time, a lot of informations are also not public. What we're really talking about? A lot of information's typically old, 18 months, sometimes 2 or 3 years old. We cannot really wait for it. Therefore, in addition to collect the hot data, our economists have to talk with all of you, including private investors, sometimes through the Paris Club, sometimes outside, then to try to come up the most up-to-date, sometimes soft informations, then we're making decisions. Because we definitely, most of Islamic Development Bank's member nations are our member nations, so therefore we would definitely like to do as much as we can. At the same time, those countries has given us the mandate to be financially sustainable. To do so, we have to come up with very sounding judgment how far we can go to. That's how we are working.
Great, thank you. Ms. Aksenia, what is your view as an advisor of setting such ecosystems, specifically credit ecosystems? What pitfalls, immediate initial pitfalls do you see OBIC to address as a priority?
I would say that there are 3 key directions that that the team here would probably think through the potential issues, potential problems that can come up. First of all is setting up the organizational processes around setting up this BI platform. What I mean under this is, first of all, having clear strategy, medium-term, long-term strategy, in terms of the countries onboarding, setting up the technology, understanding what kind of data is going to be flowing into that. Involving the right stakeholders. In each and single country, there might be different right stakeholders. So there needs to be certain level of flexibility. The single framework might not work for all member countries. That's the example of the Central Asia project that I was referring earlier. The project, the approach that worked for Azerbaijan, for example, did not work well for Kyrgyzstan. So there needs to be some level of flexibility when you're setting up the frameworks. The second important pillar that I would talk about is the education and increasing awareness and financial literacy among the users of this platform, of the BI platform, which will be among the regulatory field, as well as the private sector institutions. So what proved to be very efficient is organizing various seminars, educational sessions, bringing together stakeholders from different industries, from the private and public sectors together in a single room and providing the educational services to them. And the third big pillar, which was briefly mentioned earlier, is the regulation, of course. And regulation cutting across multiple areas. And the one important piece of the regulation that we did not talk yet about is about the data regulation, specifically 2 pieces. One is the data privacy, how the data privacy is going to be handled in all the countries onboarded on the platform. And second, the hosting of the data. Coming back to the example of the Western African Union, there was a big debate internally and with the country members whether to host these data centers and servers inside one of those countries or outside. And the consideration was to keep the servers and the data centers in Europe. But eventually, after considering all pros and cons, it was decided to keep the server in one of the countries internally. So I think the three pillars: organizational process, education, and the regulation. These are the 3 areas to keep an eye on.
Great. All right, Mr. Osama, we have a next roadmap strategy for you already drafted. Mr. Abdullah, if we can have your views on how do you see this center in context of its success, and we know you already are focused very much on business intelligence yourself.
Thank you, Rafi. And as Mr. Osama alluded earlier, I think there are certainly countries or there are companies in areas which probably are considered underprivileged when it comes to access to this type of information. I think ideally and logically the center would have to, the proposed center would have to prioritize, on that basis. With regards to the DIDC's own strategy, also it's twofold. One, which is to develop the Islamic economy sectors and therefore create an enabling environment for the business sector or the private sector within the jurisdiction of the UAE. But the other half of the strategy is global. And I think it's in that other half where we could collaborate with centers such as the one being proposed by ICIEC in terms of disseminating information around these potential areas of growth, data or information that these startups or let's say SMEs can use to drive their business forward. At the same time, we have also launched, as you know already, a series of initiatives that are catered towards enabling those types of startups or SMEs, no matter where they're located. From that context, I think there is synergy between the vision of the proposed center and the DIDs.
Great, thank you. With that, I'll set up the next session where we will right away talk more on the technology aspects with our esteemed panelists. But first, if I can have everyone, please give a round of applause for our panelists for this first part. And if I can have our next panelist, Mr. Andre from IFFG. Oh, sorry. Okay, yes, we have...
إذن شكرا لكم السيد أسامة القيسي وشكرا لكم السيد رفي الدين شيكو. سنشرع في تقديم بعض الهدايا التذكارية من المؤسسة الإسلامية لتأمين الاستثمار وائتمان الصادرات التي يرأسها السيد أسامة قيسي للسادة المتحدثين. لو تتفضلوا السيد أسامة قيسي. والدرع الأول، الدرع التذكاري الأول سيسلم للسيدة كيكو هوندا عن الوكالة الدولية لضمان الاستثمار. درع المؤسسة الإسلامية لتأمين الاستثمار وائتمان الصادرات سيسلم أيضاً للسيدة أكسينيا سوروكينا. هدية تذكارية من المؤسسة. صورة تذكارية. والمتحدث الثالث السيد عبد الله محمد الأوار يتقدم لتسلم الهدية التذكارية. والهدية الرابعة للسيد رافع الدين الشيكو رئيس هذه الجلسة.